If I could figure out how long those darts are going to be, I could figure out how much bigger my sleeve is going to be than my plain sleeve. So I'm going to be taking my plain sleeve, swinging it back, swinging it forward, creating this much bigger sleeve, and then adding these little darts in. So here we have sleeves and collar. It's looking rather good. I think I'm rather pleased with it. This is how it looks, the complete mock-up. We're now going to go into getting an embroidery pattern drawn onto the pieces and sourcing some fabrics, of course, so we can actually get started on the real thing. Good morning. I am here today at Hampton Court Palace, of all places, but I'm not here as a tourist. I'm here to visit the Royal School of Needlework, which is in this building. Lucky for them. And it turns out that our former social media manager at Foundations Revealed now works for the Royal School of Needlework, and she contacted me a while ago to say, would you come and promote our latest exhibition? Certainly, I said. And also, I'm about to start a big piece of embroidery for a certain coat. Could I come and talk to somebody about that and ask them if they have any tips? So that's why I'm here. And I'm pretty excited, because I've never been here before. I'm really excited to be here at the Royal School of Needlework in the embroidery studio here with Gemma Murray, and you are the studio manager here. So tell us a little bit first of all about what we're looking at here. You've got a beautiful crewel work screen behind you and your wall of wool.
This is our famous wall of wool. So it is a combination of crewel wools that we do actually use on commissions in the studio. We've got every shade you can see here, and it's a really valuable resource for older commissions and things like that that we're working on. And then the screen here, so this is a piece from our collection, and it's a wonderful example of Jacobean embroidery, and it's a fantastic training resource for our students because it has all the stitches that are typical to that technique. So it's got some surface stitches on there, some trellis stitches, bit of shading, and the colours are fantastic. It's a real inspiration. Yeah. It's an inspirational piece. So we're very lucky to be surrounded by lots of inspiring designs and archival pieces.
So you have very kindly agreed to talk to me about my velvet coat, because I take on these ambitious projects and I don't really always know what I'm doing. I know enough about embroidery to get myself into trouble, but I'm no expert. So I wonder whether you could help me and help us generally. I mean, there are some people watching this who know all about embroidery and historic dress and dressmaking, and some people who know nothing and just here for pretty stuff. So to start off with, could you just break down what are we actually looking at here in terms of the embroidery?
Well, firstly, what a stunning piece and what an exciting project to tackle. It's lovely. So it's a beautiful example of some surface embroidery here. So the main component of the actual cloak itself is the velvet fabric, so the backing fabric as we would call it here. And then we have some surface embroidery on the top. So we have the couching here, we have some fly stitch, we have these beautiful cut-out felt flowers here, which have been anchored down with a French knot. Very simple but very effective design, beautifully worked.
Do you think this would have been a lot of work for an experienced embroiderer?
With projects like this, it could be the work of one person. And when you are working a piece which has repeat motifing on it, you will build up a speed because you're getting into a rhythm of working. But that's also not to say it could be multiple embroiderers. So here in our studio at the Royal School of Needlework, we actually have a team of embroiderers who will work on a number of projects all together. So it isn't just the work of one person, although it will look like it is the work of one person. So it's very seamless. There's no transitional markings between who's done what part and who's done another. Ideal on a larger piece like this as well, because you will have somebody continually working it.
Right.
And what's lovely is you can work it on a large frame, so you can get multiple embroiderers on there.
Right.
So if you've got a quick deadline, that's an ideal thing to do.
Right, so presumably that's what you do here. When you have big commissions, you'll have multiple people.
Yep.
Do you think the colours might have faded? One of the questions I've had in the comments in the past is, it looks kind of purple velvet with a sort of yellowy flowers, but we can see a bit of green in the leaves. Do you think this has faded over time or discoloured?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for pieces to have faded. It will have been a functional item, so it will have had some sort of general wear and tear. Currently on display in a gallery, it's under gallery sort of conditions, but who's to say beforehand it may have been hung up somewhere in sunlight or somewhere really dark. It does look like it could be faded in parts. What's really lovely is when we restore or conserve a piece here, you deconstruct it slightly, because sometimes to get to different elements you need to.
Right.
And when unpicking a piece, you can see the original colours on the reverse side, which can sometimes be very vibrant, very different to what's on the front. Right. So you get a real sense of what the piece would have looked like originally. Right. So it would be interesting actually if you were to lift the lining to see what these colours may have been. I suspect these may well have been a green. Yeah. These sort of felt leaves here look like they may have been a bit of a pinky colour, a bit cream or yellowy. So it may well have faded.
So it could have been a lot more colourful than it looks now.
What's quite interesting when you are reproducing something, you do have those two options. So typically if we are restoring or conserving, we are matching our threads to the existing. Right. Because if you put something very new and very bright against what's there, it will stick out.
Obvious.
Or if you are working it new, as you are, you can have a real sort of play with the colours.
It's a big choice, isn't it? Do I make the coat that we see now? It looks really good with the purple and the, purple and yellow opposite on the colour wheel. That looks really good together. Do we want to see what it might have looked like when it was new? I'm always interested in, what would it have been like? It may have been a lot brighter, and often I think we see that with historic dress, that we see these beautiful antique-y faded colours, but actually back in the day they were sometimes incredibly bright.
I mean, sort of with Berlin woolwork, a lot of the colours were quite fluorescent, but actually where these items have been used in the home, and there's fireplaces and there's soot and there's grime, they're darker. It's an exciting
conundrum. And I guess particularly after the invention of the aniline dyes, and when the colours got much brighter, they can be very bright. So the big question is, where would I get materials like this to recreate this now? Do you think these would have been silks or cottons, or it says felt on the museum records, but where would I start if I was looking for what to do it with?
So I would start with your main backing fabric. So you've got a lovely velvet here, so you can get cotton velvets or silk velvets. You want something with a nice weight to it, not too stiff, because obviously you want this lovely drapage for the coat. When working with velvet, we would stabilise it onto a cotton fabric, so something natural fibred, cotton or linen is ideal, which you can get pre-treated. You don't want any sort of nasty dressings or anything in there, any stiffening agents. So then you would get your base fabric, and then the threads here, now interestingly, they look to be cotton threads. So we have stranded cottons here.
Standard ones you can buy in a store.
Used a lot for different projects and things. Alternatively, you can get silk flosses. So these are some lovely silk floss from our archives here. Silk floss is slightly more specialist to handle. If you over handle it, it can just become very fluffy and it loses that beautiful sheen to it. Stranded cotton is slightly more durable. You get a real fantastic range of colours, so you can get this sort of ombre effect that you've almost got in here with the flowers.
Was that why you said this looks like cotton?
I think it could be. Also, sort of from a cost perspective, stranded cottons are slightly
really
more
affordable, aren't they?
Whereas floss is slightly more expensive, but you do get a beautiful sheen. So it depends on sort of the look that you're wanting to go for. If you use a short enough length of the stranded cotton, you do still get the same look of a silk floss.
They don't look vastly different when you put them together.
And then the sort of felt flowers here, you can get some beautiful wool felts, which would be ideal. They've got a nice weight to them, so you could cut the flowers and then they've been anchored down with a knot there, so you get that three-dimensional effect.
You said about the backing.
Yes.
So you can get all sorts of backings for embroidery now, like the vilines and the sort of wash-off things. So cotton or linen would have been what they would have used.
Yeah, it would have been around at the time. They could have, would have got the hands on it quite easily. You do get lots of fusible interfacings and vilings and things like that, but actually we use cotton for lots of commissions that we work on because it's easy to use and you can get lots of it quite quickly, and we know how it behaves with velvet, so it's a very good stabilising fabric. You can get some lovely medium weight calicos that have been pre-treated, and that's ideal because obviously you're working through velvet, so you have to be very careful when you handle velvet because it can bruise and mark very easily. So having that stabilising fabric just gives it a bit of weight to use, but also thinking about other materials that you may use, it will be your needles as well.
Yeah, so tell me about needles.
Yeah, so you'll need some lovely sharp needles here, so an embroidery or a crewel needle, something with a sharp point so that you can go through the velvet without sort of denting it or damaging it. This is a tapestry needle with a blunt point. That's no good, you're not going to get through your velvet at all. But something with a nice sharp point.
So something fairly fine and pointed.
It won't disturb the velvet, but it will get through all the layers.
So when you say fine in terms of needles, they're numbered, aren't they? So
they come in different sizes, it depends on which technique you're using. If you're doing, you can get some very, very small number 12 sharps, which are ideal for when you're working with gold threads. But if we're working something like the screen, then we would use a crewel needle.
Can you get these from the School of Needlework?
Yeah, we sell, so here at the Royal School of Needlework we do sell needles. You can go onto our website and you can purchase them on there, and we do all sizes and all types, so that's a good point to start off with. If you're not sure what you need, you can have a look on there and you can see what we do.
And you sell the frames as well. I'm looking at this frame over here. Tell me about the frame that will be used for this.
Yeah, so obviously working a piece like this, they're quite large panels, so ideally when you're working an item of clothing or any project, you want a nice flat even surface to work on. So we use frames here in our school, in all our day class sessions, our future tutor programme, our degree programme, and in our commercial studio, and they're called a slate frame. They come in different sizes, different widths, and you can see the way that it's been framed up, you get an even tension throughout. It also allows you to work with both your hands. So you will frame your material into a slate frame, and then you place your slate frame onto trestle stands. So you can have one hand on top and one underneath. It's all about speed. It's making it as quick for you as you can possibly work. And I say we have different sizes here because we have different size commissions. So we have smaller pieces, which can be a sampler, or we can have a full length sort of tapestry hanging.
Do they come in this kind of size?
You can get some bespoke made. There are some framers who do that. So we sell 24-inch and 18-inch slate frames here on our website, and we also sell the trestle stands as well. But you can reach out to our shop to see if you can get larger sizes. They tend to be bespoke made. But actually, for the sort of commissions and projects that our students are working on, these are an ideal starting size. Also, with sort of working with a velvet as well, you have to be careful not to crush it. So if you can frame up your piece as flat as you can, great. But if you are limited for space, you can use a smaller slate frame, but you would need to dress your frame with a padding between the bars.
On the bars so where you're rolling it over,
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd use some sort of soft.
You can use a lovely sort of brushed cotton, sort of a fleece lining, but just be mindful that we use acid-free tissue on the frame as well, because we don't want any fluff on the velvet. But it's just being mindful of treating it in the best way that you can, so that you do get that beautiful sort of finish when the piece is on. So all you're seeing is the embroidery against the velvet, not any sort of dents or marks where it's bruised. But a slate frame is ideal because I say if it were multiple people working on it, you can get a few round a slate frame.
And I see you've sewn tape down the side of it just to help hold.
So we have the webbing here, and what we can do is we can adjust the tension. So for some techniques, we have the frame tight, so you can feel it's sort of like a drum, it feels really tight. If you were working a plique, you would need a slightly slacker frame when you are applying the fabric, and then you would need to tighten it. So the string allows us to adjust the tension throughout. But when you're working something like this, you want a nice even tension throughout the whole time you're working. So it's not uncommon to have to retighten your frame as you're working, because over time it does slacken off. So it's just being mindful of checking that your tension is even.
Particularly if you're working on something as big as this.
And if you're at it for quite a while as well, then you may need to adjust it.
People are always asking, was this embroidery done before the coat was constructed or afterwards?
So typically you would do the embroidery before you construct the jacket. It's easier to work on a flat surface rather than a constructed item. So you would possibly have the back panels framed up on one frame, the arms on another, the beautiful collar would be on another piece. You could work them separately on the slate frame. The slate frame is perfect because with a ring frame, it's difficult to work in your hand, and you've got a large volume of fabric as well. So a ring frame, you would damage your velvet, but with your slate frame, you could lay each panel out and you could come to different parts. So if you found you were sort of maybe a bit tired of doing that bit and you wanted to change and do something else, you could go onto another frame, but it would have been worked flat. Then you would construct the jacket, and there are parts sort of on the collar here, you can see where there are seams that you may want to conceal. So you could then do that, you could pop the jacket onto a mannequin in front of a table and maybe...
So for those parts where clearly there is a piece of embroidery that's been done to cover up a seam, you would have to put them together and then...
Yeah, and then you could do that by hand over the top.
Yeah, on a mannequin, you say? You put it on a mannequin?
You could pop it on a mannequin and it just lets you drape the coat down and you can work it flat in your hand rather than having it all in your lap because you would be crushing that velvet. So you want to give yourself as much space to work on the piece without damaging it.
So just show me on the frame here, I can see you've got, this is a demo.
Yeah.
After I've got my velvet stretched out on the frame, what happens next? How do I transfer the pattern?
Yeah, so
it shows the process, doesn't it?
we use a very traditional method here in the school and the studio, and it's called prick and pounce. So we will have our artwork of our design. We will take an accurate tracing of the outlines, and then can you see here we've pricked tiny holes all the way around the outline. We will then, using a pounce powder, put the outline onto our base fabric and then paint on, as we've done here.
Okay.
We blow away the excess.
So this is just the pounce,
just the outline. So it's a powder, top of the and then we paint on using a very fine brush to give us the outline, because you'll need to make sure that your stitching is going to cover over the paint lines.
So what kind of paint are you using here?
So we use a watercolour paint to paint on the outlines here, and then we will remove the excess pounce, so you're just left with the outline. And typically you'll choose a colour that is either in the thread that you're going to be working or something pale that it can be concealed. If you're going to be stitching in white, you're not going to do a black outline. It would be too...
This is a different kind of embroidery.
Yeah, so this is a goldwork embroidered piece. Yeah, so this is a lovely resource to sort of show people, if you're not familiar with using metal threads and padding, this just sort of shows you the step-by-step stages of how we build up the layers.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the last question I would say is, you have a huge collection here at the school. Have you seen anything like this before? Tell me a bit about the collection, whether you've seen anything like this.
The collection here is fantastic. It's an archive full of design pieces and actual embroidered textiles as well. I haven't myself seen anything like this in the collection. That's not to say there isn't anything in there. It's a real treasure trove. We're hoping to begin digitising the collection. It is treasure that can be shared with embroiderers, enthusiasts, students, ourselves here in the studio. We love to see what's in there. It's a real inspiration. We have handling collection days for our students, so they're able to come and see. So if you are learning a particular technique, they're able to see firsthand real examples of that embroidery and how it has been used and how they can use that in their work as well. What's lovely, as well as our archive, we do have the RSN Stitch Bank, which is a free, at the moment, online resource which is cataloguing a whole different range of stitches. It will become a world directory of stitch. We are launching 25 new stitches soon as we approach our 150th anniversary in November. It's wonderful because it's a visual resource with diagrams, full instructions, so if somebody isn't confident, is seeing a stitch for the first time, they can follow these instructions.
Find it.
And yeah, so for example here you've got fly stitch. You could have a look on the stitch bank and you would find details on how to use it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really exciting because there are so many different stitches from all over the world. So to be able to sort of catalogue it all together like that, it's wonderful. So.
And some that you're rediscovering, I hear, that have been lost, you know.
And you can never stop learning, so we're excited to share that with people.
Fantastic. So yes, show me some of the books as well, because you've got some of your, you've published a couple of books that show some of the pieces in your collection.
Yeah, So we've got this really lovely book here. So at the school we do teach and practice a lot of different techniques. So things like Jacobean, crewel work, silk shading, black work, gold work. So this lovely book of embroidery here captures all of those techniques and some lovely step-by-step diagrams.
Oh, it's a how-to do all of them.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
So you have a lovely history of each of the stitches, the types of tools and materials that you'll need to use. There's lovely clear diagrams of examples worked by previous staff and tutors. Lovely clear step-by-step diagrams and photos. So if you are new to the technique for the first time, you get a real sort of good understanding of what you can do. It's a wonderful resource just to have by you a slate frame, and if you want to have a look through and if you need to jog your memory, there's some lovely sort of instructions there on what to do. It's ideal if you're sort of working at home on your own, or if you're with friends working in a group. It's perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Everyone, we've had our special 150th anniversary celebrations this year. So to coincide with the exhibition at the Fashion and Textile Museum, we've launched this fantastic retrospective look back at 150 years of the school. You'll see our famous Wall of Wool.
Yes.
Absolutely, it's world renowned. So you'll see in here, it charts our history right from the beginning to the modern day. There's examples of studio commissions, students' work, some lovely archive photos showing sort of how pieces would have been worked in our studio, some of the teams that have been before us. So it's a really lovely one. So for anybody who's interested in the history of the school, it's us all in a book, and it's fantastic. And then obviously going forwards, we hope to have many more stories.
Yes.
So
yes, and you can come here and do courses, anything up from a day course up to you can do a degree.
Absolutely, yeah. We have all abilities, all ages. We have on-site classes and now online. So anybody who is new to embroidery, or if you're revisiting it and coming back to it, we have a real variety. So you can have a look on our website. There's a whole list of classes on there that are available, from day class right through to the Future Tutor programme and our degree. So
fantastic. So this is much like dressmaking, you're kind of keeping a historic art alive.
Yeah, keep it going for all the future generations. It's important with sort of heritage crafts and skills to keep that going. A lot of us have come through the school as apprentices, so to be able to share our knowledge and our experience with the younger generation is wonderful. So
fantastic.
Lots more to come.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your help, Gemma. I really appreciate it. I will go forth and attempt to embroider this coat.
We look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have had an absolutely fantastic, inspiring day here at the Royal School of Needlework at Hampton Court Palace. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody here who gave their time and expertise. That is Gemma and Rena and Sue and Emily. Thank you so much for your time. And if you'd like to know more about the Royal School of Needlework, about their classes, both in person and online, friends, and find out about their stitch bank and their shop where you can get all the materials and their books and their current exhibition, which is a Girls' Education in Stitch, which is available for small visiting groups who arrange in advance until March 2023. You can find all of that at the links below. And now, I may have accidentally bought some books and I need to get some fabrics, figure out some velvet, and now have a go at stitching my own velvet coat. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.